Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning. This is Vernon Oakes. Welcome to Everything Cooperative. We are glad that you are tuned in this morning. You know, we're here to talk about the benefits of cooperatives. And this morning we have Mr. Fred Gibbs, who is on the line. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Vernon.
And we're going to talk mainly about housing co-ops, which is a consumer co-op. It's the housing co-ops are owned by the people, the residents. Can you tell us how you got involved with co-ops, Fred?
Well, actually, Vernon, I've spent the better part of my career, over 30 years, managing rental housing, and thought that was pretty much it for housing in terms of what's offered to the consumer. I wasn't aware that housing cooperatives even existed. So, maybe 4 years ago or so, had an opportunity, as most managing agents do from time to time, to interview for another management contract, and this one just happened to be a housing cooperative. The board required that our company, become members of a couple of housing cooperative associations, the Midwest Association of Housing Cooperatives, as well as the National Association of Housing Cooperatives. And so I did. When I became a member, started to get information, and the bug bit me, and I've been involved ever since.
What bug is that? What bug is that, Fred?
The bug that leans us toward housing cooperatives as being the best kept secret, and in my view, one of the most affordable forms of home ownership.
Well, you know, I came to know about housing co-ops the same way you did. I started managing them, but I started management 20 years ago, and one of the first properties that I got was a co-op. And so the bug that I got was the bug of being in love with a passion for this form of ownership of normally multifamily homes. And for a lot of reasons, which we'll talk about today. And that's, again, the National Cooperative Bank is sponsoring this program so that you can get an understanding of the benefits of co-ops. So what was that first co-op like?
Well, I have to confess that I did not get the job. As a matter of fact, I interviewed very well, in my opinion.
Okay.
I've told this story often. I had the audience. There was a board of cooperators sitting at the table, and I felt I had the audience. I had answered every question and provided them with good information about our company. And one of the things that I love to do is sell our company. So I was in sales mode, as you know how that works, Vernon. And
mm-hmm.
I was rolling along real well. And one of the things that I touted as our success is our ability to provide good and strict lease enforcement. And as I started this discussion, and I started talking about renters and started talking about, our collection of rent and enforcing the lease, I noticed that the enthusiasm that I was initially welcomed with started to wane. And I didn't understand why I was losing the crowd. So I turned the heat up a little bit more. I started a little bit more selling. Long story short, at the end of the interview, I was thanked for my attendance and information. I subsequently got a call by that president of the board, and she explained that they chose another managing agent that had cooperative experience. And she said, I asked, where did I lose? And she said, when you started talking about leases and you started talking about renters, she says it was clear that you didn't have the vocabulary that's associated with housing cooperatives. So our board immediately thought you didn't have the experience that was needed. And she pointed me toward these associations for education. And since then, I have educated my cooperative. My approach was incorrect in their view because I represented and purported to represent an entity that essentially in the cooperative really doesn't exist. And that is the profit motivated landlord. Mm-hmm. So my discussion was more of an us against them, which, as you can see, takes the cooperative concept completely off the table.
In the cooperative, it is people helping people. Chuck Snyder, who's the president of NCB, gave me that definition of a cooperative. It's a people coming together to help people, help themselves and other people. So when you talk about, okay, you get somebody that does not pay their carrying charge, they don't pay their rent in a co-op, there's a little bit different way of handling them than in a tenant relationship. And have you found that to be the case?
Definitely the case. And many cooperatives, the board and that cooperative in general, take somewhat of a family approach because it is everyone's a member. That person who is unable or demonstrates an inability to pay their carrying charges is more than likely directed to places where help can be sought out, or there is some concession made so that this person's membership can be preserved. And I think that the big difference between the cooperative and the rental world is, in the rental world, the managing agent or the landlord simply gets rid of that non-revenue producing tenant and puts another one in. So in the cooperative, there's a big difference there. That individual is helped, and if help is available, that person's helped with the goal of preserving that membership.
You know, we're going to take a break right now, but that's a great place to take a break because in the co-op, you preserve the membership, you preserve the family, you do everything that you can to help. You put that word help out there. We're in the landlord, it doesn't work that way. We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial.
1450 WOL.
This is Vernon Oakes again. Welcome back. We're talking about the benefits of cooperatives. If you have any comments or questions for myself or our guest, Fred Gibbs, out of Kansas City, Missouri, please call in at 1-800-450-7876. That's 1-800-450-7876. Fred is a property manager out of Kansas City, and I'm one here in the District of Columbia. And we're talking about cooperatives. He found out about them about 4 years ago. I found out about cooperatives about 20. It's unfortunate that they're not talked about in colleges. They're not. We don't learn about them. At least when my MBA program, there was no mention of a cooperative business. And that's why National Cooperative Bank is sponsoring this program, so more people can get the understanding and the knowledge about co-ops, that maybe you can either, if you have a community problem, most co-ops are formed when there is to solve some community problem. People get together in the cooperative spirit and solve that particular problem. If there's a housing problem, affordable housing, that's one thing that you could get together and form and create or build some buildings, or get an older building and make it a co-op. And in D.C. particular, if your landlord is selling, they have TOPA laws that will allow the tenants to buy the property. NCB's mission is to help cooperatives grow by supporting and being an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members, placing special emphasis on serving the needs of communities that are economically challenged. Fred, do you have any economically challenged communities in Missouri?
I laugh. Indeed, there are a number of them. And it is one of the things that our company is taking up is trying to educate people and expose them to the cooperative model to help offset that, or actually help to solve that problem. As a result of the real estate explosion, they say it was a bubble burst, but I call it an explosion. Is the way it hit Kansas City. There are a number of communities that are still left in blight. They seem to have been forgotten while the city concentrates, and many business developers concentrate on areas of the city that are focused on for economic development. There are areas that have completely been avoided. And so I see that for example, creating housing cooperatives, you and I talked about this, Vernon, creating housing cooperatives even with a scattered site base. It doesn't have to be a one building. It doesn't have to be a high mid-rise apartment complex. But there are a number of single-family homes that are within a 4 or 5 mile area that have been foreclosed on, left in ruin. These homes could be purchased by a cooperative and create community, even in the scattered site environment.
Can you talk about some of the benefits of taking these scattered site single-family homes, or there may be some 4-plexes or 10-plexes single-family, and put them all together in an ownership of this co-op owning all of that, and then having these contracts between individuals? What would be the benefits of doing it that way?
I think the benefit is two-pronged. The biggest portion of this would be the benefit to the members of that cooperative. They're going to be able to control their cost going forward. There is no other model on the planet that I'm aware of where a consumer can dictate, or a group of consumers can dictate, how much they're going to pay for how much they're going to pay for housing going forward, how much they're going to pay for other services going forward. You can shop and do all that you can, but at the end of the day, your mortgage company dictates how much the interest rate is, or your landlord dictates how much the rent's going to be. If it's a cooperative, the cooperative itself puts limits on the amount of monthly carrying charges that they're going to pay. They decide when they're going to make capital improvements, and which brings me to the next point. Another benefit here is that these properties that now represent blight in some of our communities will be turned around, will be made into viable housing and very attractive housing, because this cooperative, as it forms, can decide how each one of those homes is going to be represented to the neighborhood and to the public.
You know, I want to go back and talk a little bit about the first one you said, and that is that the members of the co-op have control over their costs. Well, the big piece is that the co-op members can choose who's going to remove their snow. You have it bad in Missouri. Who's going to remove their snow, or who's going to take care of their grounds? Who's going to do the cleaning of the building? They could do it themselves, or they could hire somebody. And they make all these choices. The other thing, there was a research done in a co-op in Atlanta called Wildwood, a 200-some unit co-op. It was affordable housing co-op. And they found out that people once that they knew that they were owners, they took better care of it. And in taking better care, there was less maintenance costs. And then the second thing, there was no need for a profit. Because, again, in my MBA program, all decisions, if not all, most all I can remember, decisions were based on return on investment to the shareholder, where there's no shareholder here except for the members. And so the question is, what is best for the members? What's best for the stakeholders, those people that live there? And they get to choose that. And therefore, a lot of times, in this example, Wildwood, after 40 years, their cost for a 2-bedroom was $500, but when you went down the street, the cost for a 2-bedroom was between $700 and $800 in an apartment building. They kept their costs down, and they made the improvements, where a lot of times in the shareholder model, the capital improvements were not made because they would buy it and keep it for 20, 30 years. When the depreciation was gone, then they would sell it, and there was no incentive on a return on investment to do the capital improvement. So you're absolutely right. So I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that, because that's one of the reasons I love this. People have the choice to make their own decisions.
Yes, and you make a very good point regarding ownership and the way a property is treated. One of the, in our community here in Kansas City, rental housing is frowned upon. I'm talking single family at this point. In certain communities or certain neighborhoods in Kansas City, there are homeowners that don't want a rental in the neighborhood. And just for the reasons that you stated, it's assumed that, and it's been proven, that folks who don't own will not take great care of the property. So the cooperative model takes that fear or that problem off the table, because people are going to be more conscientious about the property because they own it. And not only are they going to, in the scattered site model, not only are they going to be more conscientious about the property they live in, they're also going to be very conscientious about the house 2 doors down that is part of that cooperative, or the house on the next block that's part of that cooperative, because they are owners of that home too.
You know, there's a lot of benefits for the cooperative model, and I want to direct now to the 7 principles of the cooperative. And the one that we've talked about first and foremost, which is my favorite, is the principle number 5 that talks about education, training, and information. Here at WOL, as you may have heard, is that their motto is information is power. And one of the reasons that they help with this program is because we're giving people information that will give them power. And a gentleman that was on the program from Senegal, a guy named Papa Sin, said that if you take information, if you get the information, that's the first thing, but then you have to put energy and action to that information, and that's what gives it power. If you just get information, don't do anything with it, you have no power. So what we're trying to do here in NCB is trying to do is give you information so that you can use this information that we're giving you to get power. And the place that you get the information from is the 5th principle of the modern cooperative, and that is education, training, and information. You have to get trained. And this is why in the co-op world, people are really easy about giving information. This is the principle that we live by in the co-op world, to give information so that you can have the power to make informed decisions and have a better quality of life. And that's what you said you found out as you walked in this world for the last 4 years.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And that information it's powerful. It has provided our company with a platform from which to speak to areas or segments of our community about turning off non-producing or blighted housing stock. And it's enabled me personally to more comfortably meet with folks in our community and share this concept with a hope that there will be that I'll be able to ignite the same fire in them that was ignited in me. And the result will be, again, an open and voluntary membership to cooperative, with folks making their own decisions, and members having their own, having that economic participation. Nobody is driving the economic ship for them. They're actually driving it for themselves. That results in the autonomy that we so enjoy in cooperatives. One of the things that I think is unique about cooperatives, in many cooperatives, there is a document, their bylaws, that sets forth how they will select who's going to be able to live in that cooperative. There is a list of rules and regulations. There's information that they require, and then that potential member or applicant will meet with the board, a selection committee, and that selection committee at that point can tell that individual what type of community we have. This is what we expect of those who are going to live in our community. Are you willing to participate in this cooperative venture? And so when they do that, at the very beginning, it sets a tone. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't exist in the rental world. If you live in an apartment complex, you have absolutely no say in who's going to live in the apartment across the hall from you. You have no way of communicating your desires, your likes or dislikes. You don't know what that person does or doesn't do. And you rely on the landlord to select the proper person. In the cooperative, the board, the cooperative itself, has some say in selecting that person. So the result will be a more cohesive community and hopefully one that has little or no, certainly reduced crime.
Fred, you bring up an excellent point, because this member selection committee is what it's called in some co-ops, or selection committee, or sometimes the board will provide a function. But you mentioned it doesn't happen in apartments. I want to suggest to you it doesn't happen anywhere else. If you're going to go buy a condo, all it takes is you're getting to whoever is selling it to disrupt their quiet enjoyment of their home. And they were sued and they won, because that's exactly what would happen if they let those type of celebrities in their homes. So there are reasons why one can not let somebody in, and the co-op membership can come around. Now, another quick thing in Greenbelt, which is a 1,600 unit co-op here in Maryland, in the metropolitan area, when they were formed in the 30s and early 40s, they had a selection committee. They weren't a co-op even, but they were looking for people that would work cooperatively. This was in the Roosevelt New Deal. And in Roosevelt world, there was a lot of co-ops formed in the 30s and the 40s. And in this particular one, they were in their original selection. If somebody was not willing to work cooperatively, if somebody was not willing to come into the community and be involved in the community, they would not get in. So it goes back a ways, but that is one of the real positiveness, and I'm glad you brought that up. I'm not sure I've even brought that up in this 10 months we've been on the program so far, this member selection committee. Anything else that you found out?
It's definitely, going back to that membership selection committee, it's definitely a plus. And you did speak about fair housing. It is important that membership selection committee have the training, and going back to training and education, so that the policies that are written, or the selection criteria that's written, falls within the guidelines of fair housing. And I can't stress enough that those policies need to be written and they need to be adhered to every single time in the same fashion for every individual that comes through the door. And if that is done, then that cooperative can rest assured that they are meeting the needs of the community, but not discriminating, because it is a fine line, a very fine line that they walk.
Co-ops have a lot of benefits to the people that live in the co-op, the residents. Ruthie Wilder, whom you know because she's on the board of NAHC, National Association of Housing Co-ops, was on last week. And what she said, one of the things that she said, it was nice having her on. Ruthie does not have a college degree. She has a high school degree and some classes in college. But she's learned how to run a business. It's a $1.8 million business that she runs. And she said the things that she's learned going back in all of these classes, she applies in her life. So that in a co-op, you have to have reserves. You have to have savings for future. And she said she started doing that. She also, started with the structure that she learned in her business. She applied them to her life. So is that your experience also for people that not only do what they learn to run the business, they also help them to run their life, their personal life?
Indeed. Those educational principles carry over from the cooperative boardroom to the kitchen table. And further, it pours into the community because you'll find that most of the cooperatives are also politically active. I'm not saying that the actual cooperative itself is, but the cooperatives are because they're used to getting involved and staying engaged. So it's a benefit to anyone who is involved in a cooperative. You're going to learn more than you actually imagine. There's information that's going to be shared because people are open and willing to share that information.
But I also find that the people in the students, and I have taught school for 12 years in my career, and I find that the students in these classes are much more attuned. One is they're adults, and the other one is that they know that they're going to get information that they can use, so that they are much, much more attuned. Have you witnessed that at all too?
Well, I think so. Again, it's the fact that you're engaged. You've been given not only education and training, but the result is autonomy and independence. And when you talk about students being father of six, I understand.
Are you a father of six? Wait, hold on.
Sir.
Father of six. Okay.
Yes, sir. Well, I understand when independence is desired, and trust me, I'm all too willing to give it. So thank God we're empty nesters now. But
okay, I didn't even know you were that old.
Oh yeah. That said, students are looking for an opportunity to exercise that independence. They're looking for an opportunity to exercise the autonomy that comes with the cooperative model. And I think that, and there are student cooperatives that give them exactly that experience. Many of them have left the confines of the dorm environment to become members in a cooperative, and it has changed their perspective and changed their lives.
Well, we've had Jim Jones on the program a couple of times, and he's been involved in student co-ops his whole life. He went to a student co-op in Michigan I think it was the early 60s, and he's retired now, and he's talked about the benefits of, well, matter of fact, he said that what he learned, and several people have said this, what they learned in the student co-ops was more important for them in their life than what they learned in those classrooms, because they had to learn how to work together. They had to learn how to solve problems together. They had to learn how to figure out when there were conflict, how to resolve conflict in a way that's productive. So student co-ops are absolutely wonderful, and I would like to see if we could get more of those. Particularly, there's none at the historically black colleges, and it's a great learning tool. Plus, people have lower price housing in the student co-ops, and they also come together and they have work studies. I mean, they come together and work together, like they cook together, and they may have gardens and stuff. So they do all kinds of things to lower their costs. 6 kids. Well, you've learned a lot.
Yes, sir, I have. It has been an experience, but a worthwhile one, I think. I'm very thankful that they're all up and going and productive members of society and doing their own things, and most importantly, paying their own bills.
Amen. So what we're going to do is take another break. If you have any questions, call in at 1-800-450-7876. Information is power. We totally agree. And we're here to give you information about cooperatives, the benefits of co-ops. If there's any community problem that you have, if you're an economically challenged community, we would like to see if we can help you get information that you need to create businesses that you can own and work in, grow in. Ruthie Wilder, I talked about her earlier, said that she's just really learned how to manage a business, and that you get the tools that you need to learn a business. Matter of fact, at Greenbelt Homes, 1600 unit, I was in their lobby and I saw a sign that co-ops gives people the tools to manage their own destiny. And I like that a lot, because that's the tool that you get is the education. It is the knowledge. So you can manage your own destiny. You can take care of your own community. You can take care of your own family. And Fred Gibbs is on the line today. And again, if you have any questions for Fred or any comments, you can call in at 1-800-450-7876. Fred, you had asked me some things about senior co-ops. What are those questions you have about senior co-ops?
Well, I'm currently working with one of our clients in the D.C. area that has, as part of its mission, to provide care for aging members of the Hispanic community. And we serve them in an area here in Kansas, and they're looking at developing additional housing. And I've added the cooperative language to some of their discussion. And so, yeah, we've discussed that. And one of the things that I've shared as a plus for senior cooperatives is that, and I've experienced this, seniors move out of their homes, sell their homes, and move into a rental housing situation. And they've been making all the decisions. They've been caring for their properties for many years. And then they move into a rental situation where the 20-something-year-old or 30-something-year-old site manager sets the rules and kind of dictates what they are to do. That's rather off-putting for most seniors, and they don't generally care for that environment. So
okay.
The cooperative gives them an opportunity to continue that autonomy. And so as we've discussed senior cooperatives, I think one of my questions to you is then the best way to get that senior cooperative development started, because we're talking about educating or re-educating a population that is well in its years but wants to maintain that autonomy. What would be some of your suggestions?
Well, there's an organization here in the district called Mi Casa. That means my home. That's M-I-C-A-S-A. And Fernando Loomis, he started this organization, at least as long as I have known him, about 18 years. He's been involved. So I've always assumed that he started it. And they started creating housing for the Hispanic, and now they do housing for everybody. And their main ownership model is cooperative. So they know how to put together co-ops. And because it's Hispanic to Hispanic, that may be a group that could help them. But on the senior side, I'm managing one 16-unit senior that was developed by another organization called MANNA, M-A-N-N-A, here in the district. And what I like about managing the senior co-op is that everything that you just talked about. One is that they're mature, they are mostly retired, they have knowledge, they have skills that they bring to the business already, but they also have something that I find is much needed, and that is integrity. I find that you can have a successful co-op if you have good governance and good management. And both of those, the good and the good government and good management, is that you have to have knowledge and integrity. And we've already talked about getting the knowledge, but the integrity is what I find that the that the seniors have, and where they lack in knowledge, they make up in common sense. Common sense is not common, but they have common sense. Okay, and so I like managing them a lot. Fred, right now we have Quincy on the line. Quincy, do you have a comment or a question?
Yes, sir. The question I have is, I know you was giving information. I do agree, is truly power. I'm in the real estate. I own 3 houses for the last 5 years, and like you said, when you doing rental properties, it's a hit or miss as far as how you interview your people.
Mm-hmm.
If someone like myself just really heard the benefits of co-oping, what would you suggest I start, or what kind of books do you suggest I should read?
Well, great question. One is if you go on NCBA, National Cooperative Business Association, their website is ncba.coop. And there is a link on there about development of co-ops. Because you're talking about housing, NAHC, which Fred and I are both members of, National Associated Housing Co-ops, go on their webpage, nahc.coop, and to get information. Here in the district, like I was talking about MICASA, they're giving classes every other Saturday morning. And you can get information about that on a webpage. It's coop, COOP, DC.org. That's coopdc.org to get information. I would suggest you keep listening to this radio program, but if you have any questions that I may be able to answer, you can get me with my email address is V as in Victor, O as in Oscar, at oakesmanagement.com. That's OAKES, management spelled out, one word.com. VO at oakesmanagement.com. And I think you can get your answers about housing co-ops. And by having 3 houses, you've already, and they're in the district, your 3 houses?
I have one they're all in Fulton County. 2 is in the city of Fairburn, and 1 is in the city of Atlanta. And they've been blessed by they've been rented out. But, just like I'm more of a changing the neighborhood more into a community and having something to offer renters and hopefully transitioning them to homeowners. I don't look at the whole big picture of capitalism.
Okay.
So I just want to be more of a service to the people that I interact with versus just looking at the bottom line dollar.
There is a group called the Federation of Southern Co-ops in Atlanta. Federation of Southern Co-op. Cornelia group called the Federation of Southern Co-ops in Atlanta. Federation of Southern Co-op. Cornelius Blanton and Ralph Page are 2 people there. Ralph is the president, and Cornelius is in charge of their operations. That would be a great source for you locally. And they're all in the South, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama. And so they're about most of their members are farmers, but they also have housing co-ops.
Okay, you said it's a Federation of Southern Co-op?
Yes.
Okay.
Good luck to you, brother. We appreciate your heart.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I will keep listening to the radio station.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred, we were talking. You have any comments on either what the caller was saying or?
Vernon, I do, and it's refreshing to hear persons say that or express that they have interests beyond, and I'm putting up air quotes now, capitalism, understanding that we are definitely in need of community. And this young man sounds like he's well on his way to creating or at least starting that process. If he gets connected to the organizations that you directed him to, I would hope that he would be able to realize the dream of creating community there in the Atlanta area. I have a daughter that lives in the Atlanta area, and so I'm down there quite a bit. She's worked in the real estate industry, and I see the same things there that I see here in terms of areas that really need some attention. And the attention is not going to come from the city government. It's not going to come from the state or the county. It's actually going to come from a grassroots effort of people who are starting to cooperate and create those communities.
I don't know if I was 12, but in Bluefield, West Virginia, I said they need to put up a recreation center in our neighborhood. We didn't have a center. We didn't have a playground. And somebody asked me, who is they? Okay. And I got early on, they is we. If we want something, then we have to do it. So the young man that was on, and he sounded young, I'm hoping that he will continue and we might be able to meet up and hook up in whether it's Missouri, Atlanta, D.C., wherever it is, that we can create the kind of community that you're talking about. As I said to you, Fred, this hour goes by very quickly. We only have a minute or so left. Any other closing comments, or you want to give people any information how to get a hold of you or your company?
Well, certainly. As I said, we are in the Kansas City area. We're in Kansas and Missouri, right on the state line. My email address is my first name, Fred, at fkgibbs.com. That's F as in Fred, K as in King, G-I-B as in boy, B as in boy, S as in Sam.com. Our website is fkgibbs.com. We provide management and training and services in the real estate industry. And our goal is to empower those who need to be empowered so that we can create community.
You know, and what I want to close off, thank you so much for being on, Fred. But Cooperatives' values are based on the values of self-help, self-responsibility, democracy, equality, equity, and solidarity. And in the tradition of the founders, cooperative members believe in the ethical values of honesty, openness, social responsibility, and caring for others. This is why we're bringing you information. Thank you, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fred.